Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For a Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. Today we are going to be checking in on my Our Fantasy bingo board. So if you have been around my channel for a little while, I did a video back in April, I think, which was the Our Fantasy bingo board, and I made a TBR for that. The Our Fantasy year runs from April to March, so I'm running out of time to finish these. So we're gonna check in and see how we're doing. It's not great. It's not terrible. Like, it could be worse, but I still have quite a few books to read for this. So we're gonna talk about the books that I have read, if they've differed from the original TBR, and there are some that I haven't hit hard mode for, and I'm okay with that, especially because this is the first year that I'm doing this. Next year we'll try for hard mode. With that being said, this might be in the wrong order from the official bingo board, because I just put it onto my spreadsheet and I might have done it in the wrong order, so we'll see. The first one is to read an LGBTQ plus list books. So they have a list of fantasy books that have LGBTQ representation, and you're supposed to read one off of that list. And the hard mode was it needed to have under 10 votes or something like that. Fortunately, A Darker Shade of Magic was on that list. And I was going to read the second book because that one would just make sense. I'm not submitting this to Reddit, so it doesn't matter if I'm changing the rules or anything like that. But that's the one I was going to read. So I haven't read it yet. Clearly. We're going to get to it. We'll get to it. I do have the book on hold, or the audiobook on hold at my library, so as soon as that comes in, I'll be able to listen to it. The second prompt is a book with a weird ecology. The hard mode was like something like It Couldn't Be Vandermeer or something like that, which is pretty easy, all things considered. I had picked Into the Midnight Void for this prompt originally, but I DNF'd it like less than 50 pages in. The writing style was not working for me, so I think I'm going to either be picking up Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, although that one's really big. That's a really chunky book. Or possibly, I'm not sure if this will fit, but maybe the Kaiju Preservation Society, because that one sounds fascinating. But it's got like these like prehistoric creatures that you kind of have to like go into a portal to take care of. It's, I don't know, it seems interesting. I don't know that it'll actually count as a weird ecology though. I'll have to do some more research on that. The next prompt is 2 or more authors, and the hard mode was like 3 or more authors, and I could not find anything that was 3 authors. So I went with Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is 2 people. The next prompt is a historical SFF book, and the hard mode is that it can't be set in like England or like the UK area. I will probably be doing a Song for the Void for this. This is set in like East Asia. It does have British characters in it, but I'm still going to count it. We're going to count it. So, haven't read it yet though. It will be in my upcoming SPFBO vlog. So I know that I have to finish it, even though I'm not really looking forward to it. But I have to finish the book. So we're just probably going to count it here. Listen, I have to be able to count it somewhere. The next prompt is a book that's set in space, and I think the hard mode for it was that it had to have non-humanoid characters. For this, I read The Darkness Outside Us. It does have non-humanoid characters. It's a really big spoiler as to, who those non-humanoid characters are, but it fit for the hard mode. The next prompt is to read a standalone, and for that I read Light from Uncommon Stars by Raika Aoki. I read this over the summer. It was the group book for the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge. It was fine. It was fine. I gave it 3 stars, but it is in fact a standalone. It's science fiction, but it still counts. The next prompt is Antihero, and the hard mode for it was to read a YA antihero book, and I did not do that. It wasn't a YA book, but I read Hench by Natalie Zena Wolskotch. I actually just finished this book, so this is the last one that I got to tick off. This is about a woman who is a temp for a villain agency, and then things happen. The next prompt is a book where the author uses initials as their name. So I read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This actually ended up making one of my best books of 2022. So I'm very happy that I read it, and I'm very happy that it got to fit in here. The next prompt is an urban fantasy, and for that I'm going to be using Jade City by Fonda Lee. I think this counts. This feels urban fantasy to me. I honestly, like, I'm not really familiar with like the term, like what is and what isn't an urban fantasy, and like where that line is. But this takes place in like a more like metropolitan city type area, and it's kind of a almost mafia type fantasy. I have not completed the series. I haven't even gone on with the series, but I did enjoy the first book. Then the next prompt is a book that is set in Africa, and for this one I am going to be reading Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. I haven't read it yet though. Have not read it yet, and it's a big book, so I really need to get on that. But this is a like post-apocalyptic book that takes place in Egypt, I believe. The next prompt is a book that has a non-human protagonist. For this book, I chose A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. I read this over the summer, and it's absolutely adorable. It's just cute. It's so precious. It's definitely one of those like cozy sci-fis that actually worked for me, and I think it's just because the monk and the robot, they're just adorable together. They're very cute. He's very inquisitive, and it was great. The next prompt is Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey, and that was like a book that has some sort of time manipulation. The hard mode is that it couldn't be time travel. It had to be some sort of time manipulation. I haven't read it yet, but I have been told that The 13th Hour by Trudy Skies will work for this. And so that's where we're putting this. And I will be reading this one very shortly for one of those SPFBO blogs. The next prompt is SFF short stories. I think that the easy mode was like 5 stories and the hard mode was like a complete anthology. There is a book called Out There, and it's written by a bunch of sci-fi and fantasy writers, mostly YA, and it's called Out There, and it's about like queer stories in science fiction. And I have it on my Kindle, but I haven't read it yet because I keep forgetting that it exists. So it's definitely one that I will need to pick up very quickly, but it shouldn't be too difficult. Then the next prompt was a book featuring mental health, with the hard mode being like not Brandon Sanderson. And for this one, I read Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler, my favorite book of the year. And there are some mental health elements in that series. Kind of a spoiler to say why, but definitely some. Then the next prompt is an indie or self-pub book, and I'm reading so many self-pub books for the SPFBO. Whichever one doesn't fit into another spot is gonna fit here. Potentially Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, I don't think has another spot, so that could work here. The next prompt is an awards finalist that did not win. I could have used one of the SPFBO books because obviously the other 9 are not going to win something. But I did read The Atlas 6 over the summer, and that one was a finalist for the Goodreads Choice Awards, but it didn't win last year. So that's the one we used for it. And then the next prompt was a BIPOC author, with the hard mode being an Indigenous author. For this one, I read Alatsaway by Darcy Little Badger, and this was a very cool YA Indigenous like horror fantasy kind of. There were paranormal creatures and like a girl that could see the ghost of animals, and she could like raise the spirits of animals. It was quite interesting. Okay, and then the next prompt is Shapeshifters, with the hard mode being not a wolf shapeshifter, and I'm using The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. There is a dragon shapeshifter in this book. The next prompt is No Ifs, Ands, or Buts, and the hard mode is that had to have more than, I think, 3 words. I don't remember. I used A Magic Steeped in Poison, and there's a lot of words in this title, and none of them are no if, and, or but. Somehow I missed a couple of these, so these are like way out of order now. One of the prompts was a book club or read-along book. I had originally put City of Dusk on here because that was just the first fantasy book that I read for a read-along. However, Reddit officially did a read-along in January for Dead Silence, and even though I didn't read it in January, I did read Dead Silence during this time, so we're gonna count that one. Then the next prompt is a cool weapon, and the hard mode for it is that the cool weapon had to have a name. For this one, I'm going to be reading Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn. This is a Arthurian retelling, so Excalibur will be there. And this is the second book in the duology, and it's one of those books that I still need to get to very early in the year. And then the other prompt is Revolutions and Rebellions, and for this one, I read Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Neon. Okay, the next prompt was a 2022 release. I used Book of Night by Holly Black. Technically, this isn't a debut release, which was the hard mode for it, but it's her adult debut, so maybe. Again, I'm not submitting this, so it's fine. I can stretch rules a little bit. And then the last one that I somehow missed, I don't know how I missed these. I was reading out of order apparently, but it is a book with a name in the, like a character's name in the title, and the hard mode is that it has to be the first and the last name. I haven't read it yet, but I will be reading The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is a kind of like fantasy mystery with like a Groundhog Day element where someone dies and then this character wakes up in the body of everybody else around them, trying to figure out who actually did the murdering. So, sounds interesting. And then the last one was Family Matters, and for this I chose City of Brass by S.I. Chakraborty. This was, I think, the first book that I read that I actually like completed for this challenge. And that one made one of my best books of the year as well. Okay, so there were 25 prompts on here and I still have 9 books to read, which it seems like a lot to do before March. Maybe that's just what I will be doing in March, is just reading anything that is left over. Let me know down below if you are participating in our fantasy, and if you have any recommendations for me for like books that would be better than what I have that I still have to read. That is all I have for you today. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.